Hello, Endersword here again, or in this game, Trial and Error. I'm here back in EverQuest again after a few years off. I played this for like 7-8 years, way back in like the 2000s, and then basically stopped probably like 2010 or before that even. But I've kept dipping my toe back in whenever there's an expansion or something like that. And I think I haven't been on it in about 2 years now, but there is an expansion coming out this month, and I kind of got me curious and I want to see it again. What I did last time I was on this is actually in the same zone. I was a level 100 at the time. Now I've popped up to 101 shortly after rejoining the game. But I wanted to do a little bit of a comparison. Last time, I almost did this as a demonstration sort of thing to other necromancers who seem to have moved towards the system of root rotting things, or just going straight for groups to get experience. And I got into some sort of debate at the time. I was playing for like a few months, and I wanted to show that this was more viable to just kind of find an open space, kite around, and you'll get a lot more done. So this is less to really demonstrate that, because I've only been back for like a day. I don't think that I'm at the top of my game or anything, but just wanted to kind of record this and then kind of compare it to my past one, which you could probably find on this channel from like a year or two or more ago, whenever I did do it. And I'm just going to go get started right away, and I'm going to pop like a XP potion at some point during this, as I did get some when I came back. But what I wanted to demonstrate, or what I was demonstrating at the time, was basically how to do a very efficient kite by just basically snaring down the mob, moving on to the next one with as few spell casts as possible. So as little mana consumption as possible, but more importantly, as little time consumption as possible. So for each of these mobs, I'm only going to actually be casting 4 spells. I'm casting the original snare to hold them down, and I'm actually using the level 84 version of that because it lasts longer with my focus effects, and it's never going to be resisted or anything like that. And then I am just casting Pernicious Wounds, Coruscating Shadow, and a Blazing Shadow. And basically, once I've cast the 4 of them, then I'm just immediately on to the next target. Now, I haven't so far died doing this in the time since I've been back, but that will, of course, always jinx it, so I won't be totally shocked if something does catch me or catch me off guard here. But the principle behind this is, I've seen a lot of people over the past while talk about root rotting. You can kill it faster. So they like to stand still, cast as much as they can, then move on to the next one when that one's dead, or maybe do 2 at once or something like that. I want to kind of show that doing many at the same time, but doing the absolute bare minimum amount of damage to them, is probably the best way to go. Now, I'm sure that this is not exactly the most popular zone these days. I think that this will start to be out leveled by 102 or 103. There's still dark blue in here for now, but I've got to figure it's on the end of that. But I think the same principle applies to other zones. It's just a matter of basically identifying them, finding a good spot to actually do this. This one's incredibly wide open, so it's super easy. And everything is already like pre-split, so again, super easy. But this principle still applies, that it's not always the best idea to just root things in place. Because despite the fact that literally at this point, I think that was the first one that actually died. Despite that fact, is this the one I want? Yeah. despite that fact, I've cast everything I'm going to cast on this group of things. Everything else is dead. It's dying already. I'm done paying attention to it. It's just that it takes a while to happen. It's going to take about 2.5 minutes for each of these ones to die. There is still, at my focus level and everything, there is still about a 2 or 3% chance that the thing will actually live longer than the snare on it, because Pernicious Wounds takes a long time. You basically have to wait for it to wear off, and then the secondary effect that comes on it afterwards is what ultimately kills most of them. So snare may wear off in some instances. It seems to be about 2 or 3% of the time, but that also seems fine. You can either emergency re-snare them when it does actually happen, or you can just kind of ignore it. I don't know what's happened there. Okay, that's a shadow. I thought it was a weird thing underground. But most cases, when the snare does wear off, within 1 or 2 ticks before the thing can even catch up to me anyway, again, it's already died of the secondary effect of Pernicious Wounds. And you'll notice I don't even have, I'm literally on rank 1 Pernicious Wounds because I've been away for a while. But these 4 spells themselves, each of these mobs has just about 1 million HP. And these 4 spells basically in total average around 1.3 million in total. If you go to the very end again of the Pernicious Wounds thing, but that usually happens after snare has been worn off. But the idea here is not to maximize DPS. It's not even really to maximize damage per mana or anything like that. It's to literally maximize damage per cast. I want the actual casting time that I'm spending on each of these things to just be a few, so that I can immediately just run over to the next mob, grab it, and start again. And everything's behind me, you know, somewhere, and I don't really care where. And I'm using Whisper Wind a fair bit to jump around. It just helps you close the gap. On the next one, also, if something ever does come loose, Whisper Wind being there is great to get away. And just put that little distance if you do, in fact, need to re-snare anything. That was only a tiny jump. But you can basically clear out like half this zone just by doing this in a nice little 30-minute spurt. I don't know exactly what the retimer or respawn timer is here. I'm pretty sure back in my day it was 28.5 minutes, but it seems to be faster now, so they may have actually cut that down, or maybe I'm misremembering in the first place. I do know that there's other things I could take advantage of, such as these gift of manas and so on, but I'm not super optimized for all that yet, and I know that there's better ways to take advantage of some of the extra AAs and everything that I get going on. But again, it's a matter of me really remembering what half the abilities do. I'm mostly remembering to cast my Robe and Third Spire to maximize crits. And beyond that, I'm kind of forgetting exactly what does what. For this particular type of thing, something like Funeral Pyre I only really use at the end, because like to basically kill things off before the potion actually expires. In the middle, even though again it would make things die faster, I don't care how fast they die. I just need them to die eventually before they come kill me and get completely off snare. I probably should also be setting up some sort of audio warning for when snare does actually come off in the event that it does. you pretty much have to get unlucky with crits in order for it to come off at all. So I think if I could ever get these upgraded to level 3 or even Pernicious Wounds to rank 2, which hoping to do that soon enough as soon as I find a glowing dread mote thingy, then I don't think there'd be almost any chance that they would ever come off. And again, if the robe is on or third spire is on, again, the chance of them actually getting away alive, like you have to basically have one that gets a very, very unlucky streak in terms of not critting in order for it to live, or really bad focus rolls or whatever it is. And so far, obviously in this round, we haven't had one yet that has broken loose. So I always found this type of kiting very just relaxing to do. It's very systematic, it is very repetitive, but I've always found like you just come home after a day and just want to grind something out for at least a half hour like burn timer, lesson burn, and this is kind of a good way to do that. And I've always liked the idea of the math and efficiency behind it, finding like the optimal route to do this. And you can see I'm basically casting almost non-stop, and the mana is still sitting at like halfway or more, much more than halfway. And then you of course have got Death Bloom and Blood Magic that you can spend to basically bring you all the way back up. Again, at strategic times. Spur in forward to get him. I've always kind of liked coming back to this. I put so much into the character over the years. I used to raid a ton on, I started on the Sullen Zek server where there was basically no rules PvP. And when that kind of fell apart and everybody, well, they made everyone merge onto the Zek server, all of a sudden there were rules, and that was kind of not as fun for me anymore. I kind of like the really heartless PvP, I guess, that comes with being allowed to train mobs on people, camp an entire guild for a whole week, things like that. So, and I also like that the teams were hard-coded. You had to be one of 3 teams. I was on the evil team since I was a Necromancer, and you could not trade, group, or do anything with people from the other team. And it made raiding a bit more of a challenge, as the evil team didn't have druids or rangers or paladins, and the good team didn't have necromancers or shadow knights, and certain races were off limits to each of the 3 teams, and so on. It was divided up based on the god that your character worshipped, but of course certain classes could not worship a good or neutral god, or could not worship an evil god, etc. So it made the raiding a lot more challenging. It made the PvP a lot more fun, because it was, you absolutely had to fight these people. Unlike the other 3 Zek servers at the time, where you could actually group with the others, you could trade with them, you could do whatever with them. That was not possible on Sullen. So it was disappointing when that came down. I also was at one point the leader of the top guild there called Hate for only I think several months, maybe a year near the end, before that merger happened, and then kind of moved away from it. Eventually I did kind of get somewhat involuntarily moved to a non-PvP server They kind of gave a few of us an ultimatum that we could either comply with the new rules. There's one that got free. So you can see here, it's got the violent proliferation still on it. And if I just, yeah, he's only about 1 tick from dying. So you could re-snare him if you want to. Or in reality, you could just kind of run away for a tick or two, and it's going to die anyway. But yeah, I moved, I forget what server it actually was that I originally moved to. And I ended up, I think it was Drenel that I originally got kind of involuntarily moved to. Then after that, I ended up here on Zedgeny. I was in a few non-PvP guilds in the meantime. Sequel, Triality, and those were all right, but I always found, I think part of the reason that I ended up quitting kind of for good was without the PvP aspect, it didn't feel like there was a real end game or end goal to what you were doing. I always liked doing this stuff, empowering myself up and getting gear and everything, but part of it was always so that you could then go off the raids and kill a bunch of people. And given the way that gear kind of scales in EverQuest, you know, if you're a fully raid geared character and your guild has kind of complete control of the raid stuff in the game, then your guy can pretty much kill 10 to 20 people of another team all at once if they just don't have the gear, the focuses, the spells, the whatever to actually keep up with you. Over time, of course, that changed a lot as a lot of the attunable gear and everything like that came into play, which is probably kind of a good... I like the server because it was cutthroat like that, but also that's the reason the server died in the long run, because of course it was frustrating for new players to ever come on and join, and even the old players, because of the way it worked, they eventually just got further and further behind where they were on gear levels. And so I can understand that's frustrating if you can just literally never win a fight with the other team. It was also true, everything now, you know, pretty much is in an instance or something, but back in those days everything's a world boss. So you can imagine a PvP server without any rules that you have to play nice or anything, trying to kill, you know, a dragon or giant or whatever it is right out in the open, when all it takes is one barge from the other team to come and kill or stun your clerics or kill your main boss, or for a necromancer to run over with a bunch of mobs on his back and just feign death in front of your entire guild and then watch your raid wipe. But that was part of, again, the challenge of it. You didn't only have to know how to beat the boss, you had to also send people out to guard the perimeter to try and defend that sort of thing from happening in the first place. So our progression was always like a year or two behind everyone else's, but it was more fun, in my opinion. But I wanted to come back and see some of the features coming in this time around in Empires of Kunark. It literally comes out Wednesday. I'm doing this on a Monday, and just started playing again, I guess, over the weekend. But it's always nice to see some of the niceties. I think one has gotten loose on me there. There he is. Fell down. Boom. So as long as you watch for that, just to make sure that they don't, you know, you're not standing right next to it when it gets free, then you're generally going to be fine. And then the other thing to keep track of is basically that because I had to run from the first guy, it means that the one that I was just snaring it has a greater potential that he's going to break 3 because he's like a tick or 2 behind from when I put the snare on and when I got pernicious wounds on him. So you kind of keep an eye on that. I wish this was a little bigger so that you could keep track of 7 or 8 targets that you may have at some point in there. But because I used the robe in 3rd Spire, I think it'll be fine in this particular case anyway. I don't want to grab these guys because they're light blue, but I will just because I'm here. Hoping that some other zones have a similar concept. This one's really, really big, and literally everything's a single, so it's kind of few and far between that you find something like that, but I kind of hope it does show up in some other zones, because I've always found this really nice. Or just anywhere with like a faster respawn rate. I think at this point I could go all the way back to the start if I want it, and they should be up by now. I love this new auto looting feature. I wish that had been around the entire time, as very often, because you're kiting all over a zone like this, or even just in a group or whatever you're doing, I very often don't bother to actually loot anything, and you're kind of going non-stop because of, say, a potion or Lesson of the Devoted, and so you don't want to actually stop and slow down and loot anything, and you're just killing off casting time and taking away from time that you could be picking up more mobs. I don't know if that's one of my guys. Yeah, he is. And I also like that you can see everything on all the time now. I think that used to be a thing where you had to literally be in a group of 3 before you could see the buff, like the debuffs or like dots that are on an enemy, and that was just really annoying. Now I can always go back and check the exact timer that's left on a spell, so if I am wondering, hey, do I need to top one up or whatever it is, I can do that, and you don't have to be playing the guessing game. So cute little features like that that they have added, I think, are great, and I don't think they were there last time that I came on. Get this guy too, even though I don't want him. So I'm not sure I'm gonna like keep playing or anything. Part of me always wants to go back to just go back to raiding and go back to playing just like a few nights a week or something like that. I think when I did it before, I was on like a raiding guild that was basically 5-6 nights a week, and you couldn't really miss much and whatever. That's in the heyday of everything. But I'm not really sure, just from looking around this server in particular. I'm sure there are some that have a fair bit of it. Oh. Kind of a closer one there. I think this is the guy. Oh, he doesn't even have, yeah. I think I missed the actual pernicious on him completely somehow. Do that. Tap up big. This might be the one that I abandoned and thought I went back to. Yeah, like this guy will die before it gets to me. And that's fine. And unfortunately, I'm kind of clearing the place out here. I think I will let the last round die, Levant back to the front. How long's left on my whatever? Oh, it's hidden. 10 minutes. So 10 minutes, 30 seconds left. So I'm going to let this guy die. I will overkill him just to speed it up. and then Levant back to the front and start again. Still got a bunch of these old clickies that do minor amounts of damage, but when you're trying to get things done either on the cheap or just throw extra damage on something, you can always do it. I kind of just made a hotkey of like every ability that was activated and figure I'll remind myself what they do. I think I'm filled up here now. Alright, so now that I'm clear, I'll just Levant back to the front and see if I could do a lap again. And luckily the Levant point in this zone is exactly where you should be starting basically. So it's pretty convenient in that way. And here I am. Let's see how far I can get again. And I remember last time I did this, again in the previous, I guess 2 expansions ago, the level cap was 100 at the time, so I did this place all the way up to 100. But the AAs or whatever I think were a lot lower, and you had a lot less critting ability, you had a lot less kind of mana efficiency stuff, and it used to be the battle here to not only kill them all, but to go in such a way that you're not running out of mana. It was like you're basically casting non-stop, so the real challenge was how do you do that and not go bone dry in the middle of a run, and that's where things like Blood Magic and Death Bloom helps completely. But you can see doing it this way, that's not even a concern at all. It's just casting these 4 spells over and over are actually pretty efficient to the point that you basically don't even have to guard your mana at all. I used Death Bloom once so far in 20 minutes. It's already back up. I don't think I've gone, like, say, below 30% or anything in mana at any point. There's enough things like Gift of Mana, there's enough savings that you get through focus items, and just the actual efficiency of the spells that you're running. They're all the longer term ones that have a lower mana cost to them. So that basically helps out. It's a lot flashier, I think, if I do this with AA, since everyone tends to go by how many AA can you get in an hour. But I think I started at 20 XP in the level, in level 101, and we'll see where I get to by the end. With the potion on, of course. But I'm sitting at like 80 something AA, and I don't know exactly what to spend it on. I'm maxing out things like crit right away as I level up, and I won't be able to spend on that again until I think 103 now. And there'll be a few things I can start to spend at 102. So I figure I'm just going to bank up near the 100. I've got 88 there so far, and have them for when I go into 102. Immediately get those, get the new spells, whatever. And possibly by 102 I might have to find another zone to go to. I don't know exactly what level these are. I remember when I started doing this stuff, I don't know what, I don't even remember what expansion this is. But when I started doing this, is he gonna die? He's a little heavier into it. So I will re-snare him just to get back to it. No, didn't even need to. Okay. Yeah, whatever expansion this beast domain is, I should probably look that up. I think at the time these were yellow and red to me, so I guess I could probably do the math and figure out what level they actually are. But based on the slightly weaker ones out in the field there being light blue now, I think that these ones will be in either a level or 2, and you always get that bad level where like half them are light blue and half them are dark blue, and it's still not worth doing. And I gotta clean out my bags a lot. Luckily, I still had a lot of platinum and everything left over from before, a few million at least. I don't know if that even is a lot now. Probably not. It is kind of funny to watch them get loose. Like, it's very consistent. If they do get loose, they die within 2, maybe 3 ticks. So you pretty much have to be like somehow standing next to it when it happens to actually get really caught by it. They can stun you, and if they get you in like a spin stun, that can be dangerous. I think that happened earlier while I was talking. But I just kind of spam Whisper Wind and run away, and in the most part, as long as you weren't half health to begin with, for the most part, like I said, I haven't died yet, but I'm sure I'm tempting fate by saying that. And of course there's safer ways to do this. If I added on Levianus Decay or anything, like if I literally basically had any damage to it at all, then there'd be 100% chance that they don't get loose. But it would be it would be 20% more casting or 25% more casting on an actual mob to do it. You could also, of course, play the extended target game, and I could keep going back near the end to the extended target list and then putting another snare on it. So you can kind of click back here and see, okay, I got 42 seconds left, it's at 5%, he's fine. So you'd know what's coming, but I guess I want to be lazy and not even do that. And like I said, in another like one level of crits or another level of spells or another small upgrade to focus, they would never get loose. So it basically doesn't even matter. So it's not a habit I'm going to pick up doing. Got 2 minutes left here on the potion. And near the end, I'll do the, what is it, Funeral Pyre. The other thing, I know there's other little things that I could be working in here. Mercurial Torment to make my casting speed faster. There's no reason really not to do that, so that you can get new ones loaded up even quicker. But I just haven't been. Again, I think it's just a matter of being out of practice, and 2, I don't really innately remember what a lot of these things are doing. Like it doesn't feel instinctive again yet. And I think this one I just kind of ran too close to. That's the other thing, is the actual spawn patterns. I don't have like innately memorized. We'll turn that on. I've got to also adjust these loot settings so that I'm not constantly getting filled up and ended up with a bunch of crap in my hand. And put back audio cues for gift of mana or text triggers or whatever there is now. Will definitely help out. And get down. 57 seconds left. This will be the last one I grab, I guess. He probably won't die in time. They take about, like if you do this, it should take almost 3 minutes to happen. actually, some of them can take close to 4 minutes to die. But you can see with the extension, you're starting at almost 3 minutes on the snare itself. So I guess not really 4, but maybe like 3.5 minutes for it to actually go down. I always keep the life taps loaded to top up or whatever, because you are going to get hit now and then, and you're going to have to spend that. Will this one die before the potion goes? No. Barely. Barely missed him. And this is another thing, the robe, because I am using Coruscating Shadow, I should be clicking that every time it comes off refresh. It does a bit extra, but again, it's going to die anyway. It just adds that it's more likely to happen sooner. Same with the third spire and the Curse of Murim robe. Same idea too, that it's going to die. You could theoretically go and work out, well, I could drop one extra spell if I am going to click the robe and third spire at the same time, and you could probably go without, say, Blazing Shadow and just go with the first 3. But again, you could either do that to save more time, or just use it to cut down on the risk that any of them get free in the first place, and that's probably what I'm choosing to do. At some point you get so stretched out. I'm just killing so many of these that the last one is so far away that you eventually have to almost take a break and Levant back to the front anyway in order to get it done. So there went from 20 XP in the level to 41 in the level, sitting, if anyone's wondering, yeah, sitting at 6,500 and 65 assigned AA. I'm not entirely sure what the difference here is. I think it might be these special ones or whatever you have, like all the expendables. There was a point, obviously, when I was playing that everything there was maxed out. Like I was maxed at some point, and they've obviously added a ton of AA new to it. So I am not anymore, but kind of questing towards that in the future. I don't know if I actually will. I don't know if I'll stick with it. Last time I jumped back into the game, I stayed just about a month. And then I kind of found that the real drawback to me was finding that solo play is, I don't know if it's ever been encouraged, but it was possible. And there are so many weird artificial restrictions in the game, and I'm saying this not knowing if it's true right now. It was just true the last time I played, and it was true when I originally quit as well. There were so many artificial restrictions in terms of you need 3 people in a party to start this thing, to start this quest, to start this dungeon, to start this instance, to start this whatever, that if I wanted to do it solo, it required getting other people to do it. When they added the mercenary system in, at least now that would count as 2 people, but I would still need either another person to sit there, or at the time I had alternate characters that I would log in, and they would literally just sit there to be in a party with me, so that I could go in and solo missions for things. And I always found that annoying to do, because they know that people are doing that workaround, but yet they're still sitting there actually making you do this. And I never quite understood why. Like, there could easily be a warning message saying, like, hey, this is intended for a group, you should bring other people, but if you want to come in here, go for it. I think in its absolute heyday of instances, I could see, hey, maybe we don't have the processing power for everyone to go sit in an instance all day soloing, and so we don't want people to do that, or that we want to encourage them to group or whatever. But when you have a class, particularly the Necro class, when I joined the game originally in like 2000, let's find out when this character started. There you go. So, okay, my time entitled is 41 years, but my total play time, yeah, literally over a year and a half, or like a year and a third played time. But yeah, this character started in 2001. I think that's the day that Sullen Zek opened, and I was probably playing for several months before that on another server. But back in those days, part of the reason I picked Necromancer was because it literally said in like the game, you know, documents or guides or whatever, hey, this is the solo class, you can play this alone, basically. And I like being able to XP alone and do all this stuff alone. I always liked either playing alone all day and then raiding at night, or that's it. I never liked, like, say, the 3 to 6 person groups that you had to find, because you had to just constantly be finding them throughout the day, and you're sitting there looking for group without anything to actually do. I always like raids had, you know, a scheduled time for your guild, so you knew you're gonna be social and interact with people and do all that stuff at that point. But here I wanted to play solo, just kind of find it relaxing, level up my character on my own. And I understand if people don't want to do that. For instance, like a cleric, obviously you're going to be kind of based around, I want to heal a group and help others and whatever. But when it's clearly a class that is designed to be able to do that, only to then years later have the content move more and more and more towards forced grouping of something, you know, that was something I wasn't really a big fan of. And the other thing I think that really killed me off, and I'm gonna forget what expansion it was again or whatever, but it was always the case prior to, you know, a certain date. I'm gonna say prior to like 2008 or 9, that when you had a zone that was just out in the open and accessible to everyone, unless the mob was a named mob, unless it was a boss of some kind or a loot dropping thing of some kind, then the mobs did not summon you. And when they started to make it so that trash mobs just out in the open world like this would summon you, and they weren't even related to a specific quest or didn't drop a specific thing or whatever, that made it a really big turnoff to players that did like to play on a solo basis. And at the time, again, I don't know how the mercenaries are right now, but at the time, the mercenaries were not good enough to keep up with that. So if you had, like, if all of a sudden you needed a tank or a healer, well, again, the exact class, like a Necro, that could solo something before, well, you can give me a tank and I have no one to heal it, or you can give me a healer and I have no one to tank for it. Either way, I still can't, that mercenary is not helping me out, basically, in any way without a third person there. So I don't know if they're a lot better or what, you know, what choices there are out there that they're going with now. I should have timed that. I might go back and see what the respawn time is. I bet it is about 15 minutes. But that's kind of my overall impression. I'm hoping to take a look around the new, you know, whatever it is, Empires of Kunark as it comes out. And again, hoping that some zones in that or in the previous expansion have areas where I can just do what I was just doing, but with higher level things. I always loved finding an area with either yellow or red mobs and just kiting them just for a long time, and finding that is the best way to level up. Even if it's not the overall best way, like grouping is faster, I just like that you could do it whenever you want it, at a moment's notice. I could log in for a half an hour, play, not have to go through the hassle of finding a group, and then also not having to go through the hassle of leaving a group and have them be disappointed when I'm like, oh, someone called, or I want to go do something else, and you just want to stop, or you only wanted to play for an hour. It always seemed like to get into a group and get anything going was like a minimum 2 or 3 hour commitment, just every day when you maybe wanted to throw an hour at the game. But yeah, hopefully I do find that. Hopefully if I find a new zone, I'll try and post one of these again with something. I wouldn't exactly call this a guide or anything, because I'm the one that doesn't know what he's doing anymore in this game. But once I do get up to speed, I wouldn't mind posting something that is a little more akin to a guide once I find a decent spot to go with. In the meantime, this has gone on longer than I expected, so I'm going to say goodbye. If anyone does still like this type of content or wants to see more of this, especially as I do find better things to do, please let me know, and I'd be happy to do more of it or talk more about essentially some of the math behind what you can kite at what points and what is sufficient. And I just threw in there at one point, 2-3% chance that this will get loose. How do you calculate things like that? So if you are interested, leave a like or leave a comment, or find me either in game or on a place like Necro Talk or whatever, and I'd be happy to answer or talk about it. And obviously, if any of you out there have any ideas where I should be going after level 102, 103, or in the new expansion, once I do cap out, please, I'd love to hear that. Let me know, and I can check those places out. There's so many new zones that I not only have I not heard of and I don't know anything about, I literally don't know how to get there at this point because of the way that the expansions work. Every expansion has its own little mechanic of how do I travel to this place, and you talk to this summoner and give him this stone and activate this thing. I don't know. So if you can point me in the right direction, that'd be great too. Thanks for watching, y'all. Trial here. Part of the part-time gang right now. Take care.